Do you ever wonder if you are missing something? Like, how are other people getting stuff done? What do they know that I don't know? We're going to talk about that today. I'm live on Facebook right now. I want to just start right off the bat by saying this is so important for you to know before we dive into this, that no system, no tool is going to give you the perfection and the satisfaction that you long for. Only Jesus can do that. I wanted to make that very clear. But that said, as a certified professional life coach who works with dozens of go-getter Christian women and who's tried all sorts of things, I know that there are amazing strategies and tools that we can use to live life more intentionally and fit in the things that really matter to us. And so we're going to talk about that today. And I know that if you use these tools and adapt them to your own life, that it is going to make a big difference. You are going to feel less chaos, less overwhelmed. You're going to feel, generally speaking, like you can fit in most, if not all, of the things that really, really matter to you. And if you're watching this right now and you're like, I have no clue who this chick is, I'm Diana. And you know how a lot of women in our modern time feel like we are juggling so many things that we're not juggling them well? Well, that's where I come in, because as a coach, I help busy Christian women to simplify and systemize their lives so that they can make the time for the things that really matter to them, and so that you avoid having huge regrets in your life for not making space for the things that really, really meant the most to you. So let's dive in. Tool number one, I'm going to start with the most basic tool, which is a calendar. And now, as I'm saying that, probably a bunch of you are like, I'm going to stop watching this video because I don't think this is going to be helpful for me. I already use a calendar. This girl isn't going to share anything new that I don't already know. Again, this is the most basic tool. You're going to see as I go on, there's definitely going to be tools in there that you're probably not using, or not using in the way that I'm going to suggest that you use them. And I'm going to show you how all these tools come together to manage your life. And how many times do we check out of some kind of a video or a book or whatever about time management, about systems, because some things are shared that we are already doing? But are you doing every single thing that I'm about to share in this video? Probably not. And so if I were you, I would look for, this is what I do. I look for even just one nugget that I can implement that I know, wow, that could make a big difference in my life. Okay, so the first tool that I highly recommend you use is a calendar. And your options for that are basically electronic, paper, like a planner, or even something that hangs on the wall, like a dry erase board. For me, I use electronic. I use Google Calendar. Why? I love that I can have it synced with my husband's calendar. It's always up to date. The calendar on there is always up to date versus maybe something on the wall that could have out of date information. My calendar is with me wherever my phone is, and I don't have to rewrite things that are recurring, like small group every Friday, or birthdays or anniversaries. So here's how I want you to view your calendar. Here's the purpose for it. Here's what I want you to put on it. First, I want you to put appointments and commitments, things that are set in stone, that are scheduled at a time, that are a commitment. And then I also want you to put, if you'd like, birthdays and anniversaries. So the calendar. So again, I want you to put appointments and commitments that are set in stone, birthdays and anniversaries. And now you might be wondering, like, okay, what about tasks? What about routine things like laundry? Do I put those on the calendar? And that's where tools number 2 and 4 come in. So we'll get to that. This video is part of a Mega Motivation collaboration that I'm doing thanks to Dawn, the Minimal Mom. So check the link that I put with this video in the description of a bunch of other videos about time management tips, which I'm so excited about because that's pretty much what I do. Okay, so tool number 2 is a task manager. So tool number 1 was a calendar. Tool number 2 is a task manager. Your options for this are paper, it could be a notebook, it could be a planner, or obviously something electronic like Trello or Asana. For me, I use Todoist, Todoist. I put a link to Todoist in the description of this video in case you want to check it out. I love Todoist because it integrates with my phone and with Gmail in some really, really slick ways. It can store way, way more than I can store on paper. I can have recurring tasks in there, things that are recurring. I can save, within a task, I can save comments, I can save links to things, I can attach documents, I can even share those lists in Todoist with other people, like my assistant, like my husband. We can send audio messages back and forth. I mean, it's amazing. The capabilities are so far beyond what you can do on paper. I'm not saying that there's not a place for paper. Wait until tip number 5. So those are some of the reasons that I love Todoist. And I've tried out a lot of other things. Trello and Asana and Wunderlist, and oh my gosh, I can't even think. Like, this is my life's work. This is what I do, is help figure out systems and things like this so I can recommend them to you guys and shorten the learning curve for you. And I always come back to Todoist. The features and the way that it works with my brain just always seem to feel the best to me. And I've had a lot of coaching clients who've tried Todoist and who love it. So here's what I want you to view your task manager as, the purpose of it. And you don't have to use Todoist. That's what I would recommend, but I think you just need to have something. So even if it's Asana or Trello, or even if it's paper or it's a planner, that's fine. But here's what I want you to think of: 4 main things that I recommend that you put into that task management system. Number 1, projects. Things that have an end to them, an end date, like planning a party. At some point, that's a project that's going to be done, and it's going to have multiple tasks. You can organize all those tasks in one place. Second, I want you to put recurring tasks in there. Maybe something that you need to schedule for the sake of home maintenance every 6 months or every year. Things that can be recurring like that. And then obviously one-time tasks. I want you to put those in there as well. And then you can also use your task management system to keep lists. Grocery lists or gift lists or ideas for content, things like that. So you might be wondering now, okay, do I put everything in there? Like, if I use something electronic like Todoist, do I literally put in there, every day do my workout, every Thursday do the laundry, things like that? Like, does everything go in there? Not necessarily. I would not recommend that, and I'll tell you more about that in the upcoming tips. Like, tool number 4 and 5 are gonna help that make more sense. And if you're also wondering, well, when do I actually do those things, and how do I know? So I put this stuff on that list, but how do I actually get this stuff off and make it happen? We will talk about that. But first, I want to share with you some super helpful resources that I made for you. I'm so excited about this. People have asked me for this for a long time, and I've done it for my clients, but never shared it publicly. So I actually created a screen share video that's 18 minutes. I went through my whole Todoist, and you guys, I organized my whole personal and business life in Todoist, and I showed you all the lists that I have, how I organize everything. I also showed you some of my favorite features of Todoist, kind of like a Todoist 101. In case you do want to try Todoist, you already kind of know how it works. It won't take you long to get things set up and use it to the max, use it really, really well. And even if you are like, nope, I'm good with Trello, or nope, I definitely want to do paper, you are still going to get ideas from seeing how I organize stuff in Todoist. So if you want access to that video, all you have to do is go to dianakerr.com/Todoist, Todoist, or you can look for the link underneath the video and I'll send that over to you. I also have a link below this video if you want to try out the pro version of Todoist for a couple months for free. I put my affiliate link. You get 2 months free, I get 2 months free. Woohoo, we all win, and you accomplish more things, and woohoo, that God gets glorified in that. And then I also have a simple resource, a PDF called End To-Do List Overwhelm. It's $7. I put a link to that as well. And that goes into more depth of how to use your calendar and how to use your task management system and how those things go together, how to word your tasks, how to organize things, stuff like that. So if that's something that you're interested in, like I said, I could talk about each of these 5 tools honestly for probably an hour on their own. So I wanted to keep this video more of a high level overview, give you enough that you can use this and go with it. But if you're watching this and you're like, I want more, I want to go deeper, that's what I would recommend, is to check out those resources. And the final tip that I want to give you before we get to tool number 3 is whatever system you use, and this goes for all of these tools, you need to be able to trust your system. So I see this happen with clients where they very hesitantly try out something electronic for managing their tasks. They've always done paper before, or it's been a mix of Post-it notes and using their email inbox as a to-do list, and they try it out, but they don't go all in. And so they still have some of their tasks in their email and on paper and all over the place. And they put some of the tasks in Todoist, but not all of them. And then they don't get in a rhythm of regularly checking in Todoist and they forget something that's in there. And so to them, then that reinforces the fear that they already had, which is that this isn't going to work for me. I need things to be physical. I need to be able to hold my tasks and see them for me to get them done, or otherwise I'm going to forget. And so whatever system you use, you need to go all in and you need to trust your system and you need to set it up in a way so that you're not worried about forgetting things. If you start to doubt using an electronic calendar or an electronic task manager and think, oh, if I put something in there, I might not see it, I might miss it, then you're going to start keeping track of stuff in the old way. And now you're going to have stuff in multiple places. And we're about minimizing the chaos and the overwhelm. That's going to do exactly the opposite of that. Goal number 3, I highly recommend some kind of a goal setting and goal tracking tool. You could choose, you could literally take a notebook if you want and figure out your goals yourself and do that on your own. That's totally free. You could, and by the way, Todoist is free. There's a free version of it, or you can do the pro version, which is $36 a year. And personally, I don't buy a planner anymore, so I think that that's totally worth it for all the benefit that I get. But everything that I'm sharing today, you could do in a free version if you wanted to. So you could just grab a notebook or a journal and set some goals. You could also, I'm sure, find tons of great resources online that you could download that are free that would help walk you through goal setting, or maybe even check out a book from the library. Or you could also invest in some kind of a goal setting tool and workbook. And if you guys know me, you know that I love Power Sheets. These are Power Sheets. They're a goal planner. This is a tool to help you set goals and then implement them and track them. So what I love about Power Sheets, you can see these tabs in Power Sheets. Amy was like, Power Sheets are the best. Yes. A ton of my clients use Power Sheets. So there's tabs here for each month where you're setting goals, but there's a lot of pages in the front of Power Sheets called the prep work. And that's one of the things that I love about Power Sheets is that it gives you, it has these amazing questions. And as someone who is trained as a life coach, basically if I could massively simplify coaching for you and what it is, it's basically figuring out where you are now, where you would like to be, and then how to get from point A to point B. And the questions in Power Sheets, I always say, are like self-guided coaching questions. So they're going to help you walk through things, think about things. It really takes the guesswork out of goal setting, which I love, because I think when you have to think too hard to do something, you are probably not going to do it. So I like that I don't have to question what goal system am I going to use? What questions am I going to ask? How am I going to set my goals? I'm going to set 90-day goals or this or that. Like I just follow the system. And I found for me, I am way more likely to follow through on things and be successful with things. And one of the biggest reasons that I use Power Sheets is because they're created by Laura Casey, who is a friend of mine, a former client of mine. And this woman, guys, she loves the Lord so much. She inspires me so much in her faith. And this tool is not an intentionally, overtly Christian tool. However, you can tell that it was created by people who are numbering their days for the Lord and who care about what matters. I almost am getting emotional talking about it because there's so much heart that goes into this tool. And I've seen time and time again in my own life and in clients' lives what a difference it makes to spend some time to get to rise above the day-to-day minutia of life and really think about the stuff that matters. So what is the purpose of goal setting? What goes into it? So I think whatever tool you use for goal setting, I will share a link to Power Sheets if you want to check that out. Right now, the 6-month undated workbook that they have, this is the 12-month dated version, but the 6-month undated version is 40% off right now. So it's $26. So if you want to try that out and then see if you like that, you could always then buy the dated version for 2022. But whether you use Power Sheets or not, what I want you to do as you're doing goal setting is I want you to, number one, do some reflection. So stop and think about where you are right now. I want you to dream a little bit. Think about who God made you to be, where He has you. What's the vision that you have for your life? Obviously, we hold that vision loosely, but even as Christians, there are some things we can say, some general things we can say for sure matter to us and that we know are important to us. And then I want you to plan. So take those things and start to strategize. How are you going to move forward on those things? And then use your goal setting tool, Power Sheets or something else, to take action and track your progress. That's one of the things that I love about Power Sheets. or really probably any goal setting tool that you're going to purchase, is it's going to give you a space to track your progress and see how you're doing. So you can see Power Sheets have a section for monthly goals, a section for weekly goals, and a section for daily goals. And there's space to check off all of those things, which I love. And again, this helps you rise above just that day-to-day, it's one thing to get through the day and like feed your kids and get the homework done and, the basic things of life. It's another thing to step back and be like, what am I actually trying to accomplish with my children? Okay, I want to raise these kids to know about God and know Him and make Him known. It's one thing to, keep up with your cleaning. Well, who of us is keeping up with cleaning? Like, I don't think anyone is perfect at that. But, it's another thing to be like, okay, I'm generally staying on top of the laundry and the dishes and there aren't like large chunks of food on my kitchen floor. It's another thing to step back and be like, what is the purpose of my home? How do I want this home to bless people? And so I love something like Power Sheets or doing some kind of goal setting because it helps you kind of rise above that and think big picture. And it infuses the things that you are doing on a day-to-day basis with more meaning. So maybe you are still helping your kids with homework and feeding them and you're still cleaning your house, but you're doing those things with a deeper purpose. And maybe you're being a little bit more selective about the things that you say yes to and say no to because you're thinking a little bit more big picture. Okay, tool number 4 is one of my favorites. Tool number 4 is a weekly routine template. I did not say a weekly routine. I did not say an ideal week. Big difference. So again, just to recap, tool number 1 to help you manage your life and have less chaos, less overwhelm is a calendar. Tool number 2 is a task management system. Tool number 3 is a goal setter and goal tracker. And tool number 4 is a weekly routine template. So you've probably heard of this concept before of like an ideal week. And that's a totally separate tool. I think that can be helpful. That is a totally different thing. Because when is your week ever ideal? So it can be very valuable to sit down. Again, it kind of ties in more to tool number 3 of like dreaming and big picture and vision. It can be helpful to sit down and think like, what would an ideal day really look like and feel like in our home and for me or in my work, or an ideal week? That can be helpful. However, I don't want you to set yourself up for complete failure and frustration by setting that ideal as the expectation, because that's rarely going to happen. Instead, what I want you to do is figure out the main things, the main buckets that fit into your day and your week. And then I want you to carve those into your week and kind of frame out your week. Picture the way that a builder frames a house. Once a house is framed, there's only so much that you can adjust, right? Like you can't put the primary bedroom next to the kids' bedrooms if the house is already framed and they're on opposite ends of the house. But you still have a lot of freedom for what exactly is going to go in those rooms. So think of your weekly routine template like that. You're going to carve out those chunks like this is the time when I work. This is the time when I do errands. This is the time when I clean. This is family time. But I would recommend that you don't get too granular and too specific with that. Like from 1:30 to 1:35, our family will do this. And then, because we all know that that's going to crash and burn. And then you're going to feel like a total failure. So your options for a tool like this, and I will tell you in tool number 5 how I bring these all together, are obviously just paper. You can draw it out, write it out on paper in some way. You can use a spreadsheet. You can even just type it out just with bullets or, in kind of a linear fashion in a document on your computer or write it out. So in the past, I've used a spreadsheet and done all the formatting and the colors and everything. And for right now, I'm just using a simple Google Doc because it's super easy. It's simple. It's easy to format. It's easy to make changes to. I feel like when you have young kids, like I have a 14-month-old and a 4-year-old, your schedule is constantly changing. Like literally every couple weeks, you're like, okay, nope, that nap time doesn't work. This eating time, whatever. And so it's very easy to change. And then I can just print out a fresh copy every time I make updates. And so again, what goes in that is like the bones of your week, the framing of the house. You maybe heard people talk about the idea of a block system before. Jordan Page has a great YouTube video about that. She's all about that. So it's a similar thing. You're not like planning out super duper rigidly. in 5 and 10 minute increments, what you are going to do with your life every single Monday morning from now until whenever. But you are giving yourself these general blocks that then you can fit more specific tasks into, and you can plan out more specifically when you get to that time. And this is helping you to kind of chunk things too. We've all heard of that concept of like chunking and batching. Are we actually doing that though? I would guarantee every one of us, including me, has room for improvement there, that we could find another area that we could chunk, batch, be a little bit more intentional, like, okay, all these things go together in this one block of time. And again, I will say it again, do not make this too specific or you're going to feel really frustrated. I mean, you can make it too specific and then try it out and you will see that it doesn't work and you're going to feel frustrated. But I have a workbook that can help set up a weekly routine if you feel like you need extra help and you want a life coach who's worked with tons of clients on setting up routines to walk you through this process. I don't have time to do all of that now. The workbook is pretty in-depth because it takes some effort to really set up a routine that's going to work well for you and fit all those puzzle pieces into your life. But if you want that workbook, I have a link to it below this video. You can also go to dianakerr.com/weekly-routine to get that workbook. That is a paid product, just giving you a heads up. And I don't really care that much about your money. I mean, it's nice to have a little bit of money to pay for my kids to go to daycare and stuff like that, pay for my bills. But really, I'm sharing these things with you because I know that they will bless you because they've blessed tons of other people. And I'm so passionate about helping women be unshackled from the crap that's holding them down and helping them run free and helping them run in the lane that God has given them to run and do it well. And my friend, Dr. Megan Burt from meganburt.com, she said about that routine, and you'll see other testimonials on there, like, Diana has such a refreshing take on time management and planning your week. It's simple enough you will take action on it, yet practical enough to see a change in how you manage your calendar. It was so helpful for me to see my week as a whole, figure out what was important and how to make what matters happen, and get everything else that doesn't off my calendar. Shannon is saying, yes, I have tried to make my routine too specific as well. It didn't work at all. And it was so frustrating because when are our weeks ever super cookie cutter from week to week? They are not even close. So you have to give yourself space. And usually too, when people get too specific, what they're doing is they're trying to cram in more than they actually can into a given week, into a given day. They're not being realistic that like things are going to come up or you're going to have doctor's appointments or like all sorts of things, right? So keeping it more general is going to give you space for that. In the workbook, I share with you some things that if you feel like, okay, these are my non-negotiables and I still can't fit them all in, what do I do? Like, for example, a very, very simple thing is looking at maybe some of those things and saying, does this thing need to be done every single week? I'm trying to fit it in every week. It's not working. What if I did it every other week? Like, what if we went on dates every other week? What if I washed the sheets every other week instead of every week? I don't know. So that's one of the tips from that workbook. And again, you can find the link to that below. Okay, tool number 5 brings it all together. So just as a reminder, we've got the calendar, the task management system, the goal setting, and oh my gosh, the weekly routine template. Hello. So tool number 5 now is some kind of a daily or weekly planner sheet. I highly recommend this be paper. You can, if you want, you could print out your calendar from Google Calendar, iCal, and go from there. I'm sure there's probably an electronic way to do this, but I highly recommend when it comes down to what you are implementing today in your life, that be paper so that it can sit out on your desk, it can sit out in front of you, and you do not have to interact with technology, which we all know is very dangerous, like rabbit hole possibilities. You do not have to interact with technology every time you want to check on, your calendar for the day or the next thing that you wanted to get done on your to-do list. So for you, this could be any kind of paper format. Again, you could print it. You could start by printing out what you have on your iCal or Google Calendar. So you're starting with the basics of the things that are scheduled and are set in stone. You could use a planner for this, like a typical planner, day planner that plans out your time. Or you could even just use a piece of paper. And this is what I use. I'll show you here. I literally just have a clipboard. This is like my planner. I literally have a clipboard and I'll show you like an example. Here's what's on the schedule so far for tomorrow. Sorry, everything's backwards. So literally it just has 15-minute increments for the day. And 1 week at a time, I will write out like my scheduled things for the week on there. And then from day to day or sometimes week to week, I will schedule in more specifically the rest of the things. So you need something like that. I feel, I recommend it. If you are trying to fit in a lot of things, you want to live super intentionally and want to keep track of things. You don't want to forget things. And so here's how you bring all these things together now. So, and part of why I use this is like, I found that I wasn't really using all the components of a paper planner. This was the part that was most helpful to me. I had the power sheets. I had the place to like track daily habits, and I've got my task management system, so I've got a place to write tasks. I've got my calendar, so I've got a place for appointments. So to me, the only part of a planner that was helpful was really that scheduling things out throughout the day and writing down a couple of specific tasks that I'm going to work on during that day. And so this saves me a lot of money to not have a planner, and it's very simple and easy, and I love having it on the clipboard, and I've got magnets on the back so I can stick it on the side of the fridge. Usually this is sitting next to me if I'm at my desk, or if I'm not here in my office, it's usually kind of on a little area of our kitchen counter that's kind of the command center sitting out there, or it's up on the fridge right next to that command center. So it saves me money, and I love having, so my work days, I have sessions that are 45 minutes long. I have to use my work time very well because I work part-time with my kids, and while my kids are at daycare and school. And so for me, it helps to be able to schedule things out in 15-minute increments. So during my work time, I plan out very specifically my tasks. And then when it's family time, or when it's time where like I'm not working and my children are around or other humans are around and life is more unpredictable, then things are more fluid, where I kind of have like, okay, this is a family block of time, and here's a couple things that I would like to try to get done in that time if I can. So here's what I want you to do. Oh, and another thing is, I like to focus on just one day at a time. You could have some kind of a sheet like this that has the whole week. That's totally an option, especially if you're like, need to plan out my day in 15-minute increments. That's fine. Again, I only do that for my work time. You could have something that shows you your whole week, but I like to just focus on the day that I'm in. I start to feel overwhelmed and anxious if I'm looking too far ahead. If I see everything I need to do in 1 week at a time, my brain, this is what our brains do. We start to put all those tasks and all those appointments, all those things together in one place. And we don't understand that we're going to do just one thing at a time. And we start to get overwhelmed, feeling like almost as if we have to do all those things at once. And we can't. We can only do one thing at a time. So I even find myself doing this sometimes in a given day, where it's like in my head, I'm like crunching together all the things that have to be done in that day and almost feeling the weight of them as if I have to do them all at once. But I don't. So having just one day at a time that I can see on my clipboard is very helpful for me, and I can always like flip and look at what's on Wednesday. But I find that works best for me. So this is where you are going to now, number one, write down anything that you have scheduled or committed to. So you're going to look at your calendar and you're going to write that down. So if you're like multitasking while you're listening to this video, it's okay, I totally get it, but come back to me now because it's going to be helpful. So you've got your planner. Start by looking at your calendar. You write the things down, like the times you have to pick up the kids from school, the appointments, the things that are scheduled, sessions with your clients, work things, whatever. You write that down. Then I want you to look at your weekly routine template and kind of mark out your blocks, your buckets for things like, okay, this is the chunk of the day that we're going to be doing yard work or cleaning or family time or whatever, fill in the blank. And then I want you to look at your task management system and your goals and start to fit those things in the chunks that are open. Or for example, like I know, okay, Mondays Mondays when I'm working, I literally only have like 2 hours on Mondays to work before I have to pick up my preschooler from school. But Mondays are when I work on like a very important project, whatever the main project is in my business. So that's kind of what my weekly routine template says. That's the framework, that's the frame for that time. But then I'm going to get more specific once I actually get to that day or that week, and I'm going to plan out more specifically what I'm going to do in that time. Same thing with like, my goals. Okay, there are things on there that I'm going to plan into the framework of my day and into those extra pockets of time, like, oh wow, we don't have anything going on Saturday morning, so that would be a great time for me to make progress on this thing, XYZ. Does that make sense? Let me make sure I'm covering everything. And you can always write down a couple of extra tasks along the side. So, if you can kind of try to plan things into when you'll do them during the day, because you're gonna be much more likely to do stuff if you know when it's going to fit in the day. When we just write a task list, we are not as realistic with ourselves because we just think, well, I'll fit it in somehow, but will we? So try to kind of plan into your day. It doesn't have to be at an exact time, but roughly speaking, the time of day that you will do some of those things, or like, okay, I will make that phone call while I'm waiting in the carpool line, or I will do this thing at some point during nap time, or at some point while the kids are eating lunch. But you can definitely write down a couple extra things as well on the side. And again, this is kind of like the weekly routine thing. Play with it, put too many things down, and prove to yourself that it's very stressful and you're not going to get it all done. And then work back from there and make things a little bit more simple, a little bit realistic. And I want to encourage you so much because I am not just about time management, system simplicity, just from in a totally secular, normal standpoint, but I teach people these things to help them live more intentionally for eternal purposes. And in everything that I share with you, I want to keep you focused on what really, really matters. And so I want to remind you, and I'm reminding myself this too, that the purpose of your life is not ultimately to accomplish things and check things off. And so please be so mindful of how you use these tools as it relates to people and the people in your life. Are you seeing good fruit from these tools? If so, then you're probably using them well and not abusing them or obsessing over them. But if you find that you are a slave to your goals, a slave to your to-do list, a slave to your calendar, and you are not as good of a version of yourself around your family, your coworkers, the people you love, when you are using these things, then you need to take a break from these things, or you need to pull back, or maybe even just try not using them at all. But I would argue there is a way to tweak these things and use them well. Don't throw them out completely, but just remember that people come first. And our goal in life is not just to get things done, but it is to enjoy God, enjoy Jesus, and become more like him, and treat people around us like he would treat them. So remember all that. By the way, if you, this sheet is incredibly basic, but if you are like, oh, this would be really helpful, I want that sheet, I included a link to this document, to this PDF in the email that I will send you for that Todoist screen share. So if you're just catching us now on the Facebook Live, I made an 18-minute video showing you in depth of how I organize Todoist, my task management system. And so if you pop your name and email in at dianakerr.com/Todoist, or if you click the link and go to dianakerr.com/Todoist, I will send you the video of Todoist, but I will also send you in the email with that video link this PDF so that you have that. Now, if there was a bonus tool, I would say that it would be something to store information in a relevant way. So I'm not saying necessarily that these 5 tools are all encompassing, all inclusive. You will not need any other tools whatsoever. However, I do think that they are a great, great start. And you may also need to have kind of like an external brain, for example, Google Drive, where you're maybe keeping more detailed documents. You know what I just realized, guys, is that I forgot to say that I also keep lists in Todoist, or I didn't share with you as much about that as I wanted to, I don't think. So I do keep some lists in Todoist. You'll see exactly what they are in that screen share video at dianakerr.com/Todoist. But I keep grocery lists in there, shopping lists. Those are shared with Kyle as needed, my husband. I keep lists of things to ask our doctors about. I keep gift ideas, reading lists, things like that. So that's another great way in case you're like feeling like, I feel like she's missing some tools that I really could need. So those are really the primary things. Yes, there are like a few other things that I use and apps that I use and stuff like that. But that's the basics of it. And we'll get to the Q&A here in just a second. But first I want to just be super duper real with you because I never ever want you to watch these videos and think, Diana has it all together. She's got it all figured out. I'm a disaster. What's wrong with me? First of all, let's be real. This is earth. It's not heaven. There is not really perfection here on earth. It's not going to be perfect. In heaven, we will have perfect to-do lists. We will get them done every day. I don't know, whatever that looks like for us perfectionist, task-oriented people, but it will be perfect. We will have our ultimate satisfaction in Jesus, in the perfection of heaven. We will not care as much about our lists. So just remember, any system that you use is never, never, ever going to 100% click and make you feel perfect. I certainly don't feel that way. I don't feel like my life is perfect and like these tools just perfectly manage everything seamlessly. Because hello, not only is this earth, but also, hi, I'm Diana. I'm a sinner, so I'm not perfect. I'm an imperfect person living in an imperfect world, and I have a 1-year-old and a 4-year-old. I have 2 small children in my life. So these things are not perfect. Just keep that expectation in mind. They can serve you so well. They can bless the people in your life so well, but they are not ultimately ever going to be perfect. And so sometimes you just need to choose a system and go with it, even if it's not 1000% perfect. Another thing I just thought of, this is not on my notes, but I like to tell people no amount of perfect organizing bins will fit 2 closets worth of stuff into 1 closet. So you can have the perfect tools, but if you are still trying to fit too much into your life, it's still going to feel chaotic. It's still going to feel like too much. So if you're trying these things and you feel like your life is it just feels like a disaster, it feels like you're dropping balls, you probably have too many balls that you're trying to juggle. And so again, no system is going to fit 2 days worth of tasks into 1 day. You probably need to start with simplifying. And finally, I just want to say, you don't need these things to live an intentional life. I feel like Christians talk about these things sometimes, and I hear people like make these very black and white statements, and I go based on the Bible, and the Bible doesn't tell me that I need to have these things. So if you are not wired that way, if you don't want to use these things, or you have a totally different rogue system, that is totally fine. Just remember, it's about the end result, the end goal of enjoying God, being more like Him, glorifying Him. So use whatever you need to use to accomplish that. But I wanted to give you a roadmap today, a framework that, trust me, has been majorly trialed and errored and tested with me and with many, many clients, so that if you want to, you can just take this and use it and tweak it for yourself. Share with me any things that you're struggling with this, and I would love to help you. As we wrap up, and before we get into any questions that you guys might have, make sure that you check out all the amazing resources that are linked with this video. If you're watching this on Facebook right now, please, it would mean so much to me if you just click that little share button and just shared it. Like our page if you don't already. If you're on YouTube, please subscribe so we can hang out some more, and comment and tell me whether you're live or recorded, watching the recording. Comment and tell me any questions, because I really, really want to encourage and help you in this. Okay, let's see if there's any questions. I know that it's like Labor Day morning, so not a lot of people are here live. But let's see. Amy is saying, I keep a master to-do list of all the random things I keep thinking of that need to get done, and then pull from there what can fit in my day. It helps end the eternal moving of tasks from one day to the next. Yeah, so that's a huge, huge thing, that having Todoist, or even if it's paper or whatever it may be, you essentially are having, and I didn't use that phrasing, but that's what I like to talk about with people, is like you have a master list and then you have your list for the day. Have those things be separate, because if you just have a giant, huge list of everything you can possibly think of, and you're just, every time you have a free moment in the day, consulting that list, oh my goodness, you are going to feel so anxious. So have a master list and then pull from that list just a few things that make sense for the context of that day and that you think you can realistically fit into that day. The cool thing is, I mean, there's no perfect way to know exactly how many tasks to plan into your day to have like just enough, but not too much. But when on the days when you hit that sweet spot and you're like, I checked everything off. Now, if you want to, yes, you could go get more stuff done and feel like a boss, or you can be like, I thank you, God. We did some good work together today. I'm going to relax a little bit. I'm going to have a little extra reading time tonight, or I'm going to enjoy my kids instead of trying to distract them so that I can just get more stuff done. That's a really beautiful thing. And if you're, sorry, this just struggling here with this sleeve. I feel kind of like Meryl Streep in Mamma Mia right now with my overalls and my fluffy white shirt. But if you are going off of a master list all the time, you are never done, ever, ever, ever. So taking the stuff off the master list into just what you're going to do for the day, planning into the day, is so helpful. Shannon said, did I create my own daily planner sheet? Yes, I did. And like I said, I will send that to you guys. Let's see. Amy said, what do you do when you get to the end of the day and you've totally fallen off of your plans? It seems like I often get derailed by things out of my control. Yes. So that happens to me all the time, that my day gets derailed and I feel like, oh, this didn't go as planned. So there are a lot of things I could say about that. One thing that I will do sometimes in those situations is ask myself, number one, what did I do well today? What went well? And like acknowledge that. Thank God for that. And number two, what could I have done better? And the reason I ask myself that question is because sometimes things go awry and then the end result of our day or a situation feels icky and we beat ourselves up because we feel like, oh, I totally failed. I totally failed at the thing. But when we look back on it and ask ourselves that question, we realize, yeah, I did the best I could. Like if you had your day planned out and you thought it was gonna be a normal day, and then all of a sudden someone stopped by to visit you for a couple hours unannounced, or your kid or your dog threw up, or whatever, a client had an emergency and you chose to jump in and help them and give of your time to serve them. Like, what could you really have done differently in that situation? Turned away the people at the door and said, no, you can't come and hang out with me right now, or left your kid in their puke. You know what I mean? Sometimes we're hard on ourselves because we didn't get the result that we were after, but it's not really our fault. It's not because we did something wrong. However, when I do ask myself that question, usually there's at least a little something that I can learn and say, now that I think about it, here is like one thing that I could have done better. And sometimes that thing that I could have done better is even just at the point at which I realized that this day was not going to go the way that I planned it to, and that I was not going to get everything done that I had initially planned, what I could have done better is I could have taken 2 minutes to just pause, stop, and reassess the day. Like hit reset and cross a bunch of things off the list. Nope, these aren't going to get done, or move them to the next day and kind of refresh. Here's the new expectations for the day that I'm going to work from now, instead of trying to work from the to-do list that you set at 6 a.m. or set the night before that now is completely impossible. Another thing that helps me sometimes on those days is to write a done list. So let's be honest, there are a lot of things we accomplish as women that are never on a list. They're never checked off on a list because they weren't on the list in the first place, but we do them, and we do them well, and we show up well, and we love people well. So I will literally sometimes on days where I'm feeling like, what have I done today? Have I gotten anything done that matters? Look at my list. I will just literally grab a piece of paper from the recycling bin and just start scribbling out things that I've gotten done. Or like, wow, I was so patient with Harry in that moment. When, I got this thing done, et cetera, et cetera. So that can be something that helps too. And another thing I will say is I think it's very helpful to come back regularly to your big picture, to your why. What results are you really after in life? What it really is your vision for life? Because I would love to have a perfectly clean house, perfectly organized house, have everything checked off on my to-do list all the time. But when it comes down to it, the way that I am showing up for my kids and my neighbors, and like whether I'm spending time with God and communing with him and worshiping him and like really connecting with my husband, those things matter so much more to me. And so when you're connected to the results that you're really after in a given day, and you're looking big picture and you're seeing that your day isn't just about cleaning and food prep and this and this and this, but you also want to like raise your children to be capable adults, and you want to make your husband feel like excited and grateful to live in the house that he does with the people he does, like things like that, you can have a very, very successful day even when your day doesn't go as planned. Amy's like, yeah, kept the kids alive. Yeah. Shannon said, I have used the basic reminders app on my iPhone. Is Todoist much more helpful? So I'm not an iPhone person. So I don't know too much exactly about how that app works, but I can almost guarantee that Todoist is going to probably be more in depth. And here's what I would recommend. If you're trying to decide between a couple different options, there are people on the internet who have done all the research for you and written a blog post about it. So all you have to do is go Google Reminders app versus Todoist, and then I usually will put in the year so that you're getting a post that's, relevant to the most up-to-date features of that app. So I would put in like Reminders app, iPhone versus Todoist 2021, and then I can guarantee you will find blog posts from people who are saying like, here's what this one does, here's what this one does, here's the pros and cons, here's what I think of it. You can use that little trick with anything that you're considering, whether it's 2 different meal delivery services or 2 different email service providers or something like this to see the differences between those things. And if you're watching this like Shannon or anyone else and you feel like I've got everything under control, like things are going smoothly, I'm getting the right things done, it's organized, then if it ain't broke, don't fix it. Don't feel like you need to go make something more complicated than it needs to be. Like there are people in my life who don't keep to-do lists and somehow that works for them, and that's fine. Like if that's working for you and you feel like you're living an intentional life and there's good fruit in your life, then I'm not going to tell you that you need to make it more complicated. But this is kind of more for people who feel like there's too much chaos and there's too much to manage and I need a better method for managing everything. Okay, any other questions? I know Shannon had a question about things I do at home with the boys to cultivate their faith. That's a great one. I actually have in Todoist on my content ideas list, I have an idea with some bullet points of a video that I want to create about that, about how we do that. So I won't get too much into details on that now. If you were in my group program, Fight for Margin, you know that we talked about that a bit at some point because someone had a question about that. But I would, just to answer that very quickly, I would say, think about what it is. I always come back to like the end result. What is it that you really want for your kids and for their faith? And what are the things based on the person that God made them to be, their personality, their circumstance, and their age, their stage, that are going to help you to achieve that? And so that might even look a little bit different from kid to kid. But I think most of us who grew up Christian can understand, at least to some extent, what that feels like to have very well-intentioned parents like cramming, something down your throat. Like someone I know whose dad was always like really intense about family devotions, and people would be like literally leaving the house or something, or like in the middle of something important, and he would just suddenly decide like, it's family devotion time right now. And they were like, ah. So I think we want to be so like, I don't want to just like cram Bible stories into my kids' head. I want them to want to learn about God and enjoy him. And so I try to infuse that in very organic ways. But then usually in any given season, there are some specific habits too that I'm very much like making a point to cultivate. So like right now, my 4-year-old loves reading his children's Bible. He will pick that over a book most of the time. So if he asks me to read to him and he wants to read his Jesus Storybook Bible, I will say yes to that pretty much anytime. And I keep like one of his children's Bibles and some like Jesus-y books in the back seat of our car, and I will like climb in the back seat in between the boys in their car seats and like squish my postpartum hips in there in between their car seats and read to them in the car, because that's like a perfect time. Otherwise I'd just be sitting in the front seat, probably on my phone. We're talking about politics with my husband or something stressful. So I will climb in the back seat and read to them. He loves worship music at this age too, and he loves watching videos of people worshiping and like performing. And so I especially try to show him videos with men who are leading worship so he can see that it's not just a girly thing, and you can show emotion and be expressive when it comes to your faith. And so those are some of a number of things. But again, I think it comes back to like those results, and you might even think for yourself too, what are some of the things that really shaped and molded my faith? What are some of the things that helped me to have the relationship with God that I have now? And maybe some of those things would make a big difference for your kids. And I'll just share one more thing about that. I had a kind of a fun realization a few weeks ago that a huge, and maybe I'll tweak this over time, but a huge part of my vision, my goal for my two sons is essentially I want to raise amazing Christian men who love the Lord, who amazing Christian women would want to marry. I'm not saying my kids have to get married. If they don't get married, that's totally fine with me. But I feel like that wouldn't that be like a mark of success? And not that we take the credit for it, like it's God and the Holy Spirit ultimately. But wouldn't that be a mark of success if your kids were the kind of people, if you raised up daughters who became the kind of women, or you raised up boys who became the kind of men that other Christians were like, I would like love to have a life with that person. Number one, because they have an amazing relationship with God and love him deeply and know him and live out their faith. And also because they are a competent adult who is responsible and hardworking and has a job and, knows how to care for themselves in a home and things like that. So that's something that I've really kept in mind lately. Like, what are those things that I need to prioritize in my day today to just help move a little bit in that direction to raise these boys who someday maybe some wonderful Christian woman would be like, I would love to be married to someone like that. So, all right. Thank you guys so much for being here, so much for watching. Again, please subscribe, and please let me know if you have any questions or frustrations about this. There might be something I'm missing, and I would love to help fill in the gaps for you. Check out all those resources that I shared, and I love you so much, and it's truly my joy to serve you and help you simplify and systemize things so that you can use your time well. All right, talk to you soon.